everybody. Welcome to our college conversation with Yale University students. I'm Harlan Cohen, and we're going to get things started. You guys, welcome to Before College TV. It's great to have you all. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
This is such a treat. So I want to get to know all of you, and I want everybody who's watching to get to know you as well. So if anyone's watching this live, share your questions. If you're watching a recorded version of this, share your questions. You can also reach out to our panelists on Instagram. Like they said, they'll actually get back to you, which will you actually get back to people?
We'll try our best.
We'll try our best. I like almost. We'll see. Right. But we'll do our best. But I'm really grateful to have you all here. So Athena, I'm going to start with you. So today is April 7th, okay? And we are in the middle of coronavirus shutdown. So are you at home right now?
Yeah, I live in New York, so I've been at home for God knows how long.
Oh my gosh. So you're in the epicenter.
Yeah, I live in New York City.
Yeah. So have you gone outside? Like, tell me what's going on there. I know that this isn't college related, but like, just give us a vibe of like, what's your life like there?
Honestly, I think because we've been hit so hard, there's like a lot less incentive for people to go outside. The city has like a huge like parks culture, and normally when I'm at home, I try to get outside as much as I can, but I literally we only leave the house for groceries, and then when we bring the groceries in, we like wash everything with soap and water or like Clorox the boxes.
Yeah.
And just my parents go. Yeah, it's just like really scary. Like there are a lot of friends of friends who are like who are falling ill with the virus. I know a couple of people not too far removed from me who have died. So
right. So you're like in the middle. You know, it's interesting because I know that we're going to look back at this time and even this conversation, and it's just wild because a few weeks ago you were at school, you were on campus, all of you. So Athena, let's say it's April 7th and none of this happened. Okay. It's a Tuesday night. Where should you be had the world not turned upside down?
I would probably be at office hours for physics or for one of my other STEM classes. I'd have office hours until like 10 in the evening normally. And then I do some more work and hang out with my friends.
So you teach as well? Like you help people?
I used to be a peer tutor for chemistry, but I need help on physics. Yeah, especially like a lot of STEM majors, we have to go to office hours to like finish our problem sets and stuff.
Right. So that's what you'd be doing. Okay. Let's move on to Kahlil. We have Kahlil. Welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Hey man, where are you right now? What city are you in?
So right now I'm in Montgomery County, Maryland. I'm living in my older brother's apartment because in the beginning of spring break, I went with a few friends, including Athena, to LA, California. And there were some cases at LAX. So I came here to kind of just like keep my parents safe.
Wow. So did your parents force you to go there?
Not directly, but I think it was strongly implied.
Right. So you're not welcome at home.
I am now. It's been over 2 weeks, so like I'm safe. And my parents just came the other day.
Right.
We like cooking everything, but it's like more comfortable here anyway. So
is this an older brother?
Yeah, he's 7 years older than me actually.
So did you hang out? Is it fun to hang out with him?
Yeah, it is. Like we play video games when we have free time. We also have like a movie list that we've been watching. We watch Tiger King as well as Contagion and Outbreak. So it's a fun time.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great. What a wonderful time. So right now, what would you be doing April 7th in New Haven had coronavirus not canceled school? Where would you be tonight, right now, at this second?
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually a really important week, or would have been. So I'm in student government, and now would be quote unquote election season. So usually I think the Tuesday, April 7th, what it is right now, would be the big debate. So I'd be hosting a debate of potential candidates for student body president and vice president.
Wow. So can you be president again?
So not for a full term, but what we did is we had to postpone elections because not everyone has a fair shot. Seeing as so many people are dealing with the crisis, people don't have internet, people don't have computers. So we want to make sure that everyone has a fair chance to run. So elections have been postponed, but not necessarily extended my administration.
Really? Okay, cool. And for those of you watching, Kahlil is the president of YCC. The YCC is the Yale
College Council, yeah.
Absolutely. And so that's president. I didn't want to start off being like your president because, you know, like everybody says that. So like, why do I need to start with that? Because you're just some dude playing video games, watching Tiger King with his brother in Maryland. right? It's
Exactly.
like
It comes up one way or another, but yeah, I'm still just a normal person as well.
right, because that's who you are. So that's great. So it'd be in the middle of election season. You would be debating. Oh, good. Are you a good debater?
Yeah, so now that I am currently in student government, I'd be hosting the debate. But last year I did have to do the debate, and I've gotten better. I never did anything like it in high school, but
Right.
coming to Yale, I learned a little bit about debate and argumentation.
Interesting. So Seyade is our other panelist, and now you know Kahlil. And have you two ever debated?
Kahlil and I, we like to debate. We get into little arguments here and there, but nothing official.
Well, what was the last time there was a debate, and what was the subject, and who won? But if you can remember, because you went to LA together, so you were like hanging out, right?
Well, Kahlil and Athena went to LA together. I did not partake in that trip.
Oh, you were not going. So, okay, but you
Oh,
are.
the last debate we had though was about Game of Thrones characters. Who was the best character?
What was the consensus, or what was your argument?
Well, he likes to argue that Cersei is the best character, and I think that the Marjorie Olenna duo was the best.
Really? And Athena, you kind of like scrunched your face when Seyade said that. Is that why are you scrunching your face?
Because Kahlil is very passionate about the House of Lannister, and last I checked, he has a ginormous poster, like with their house seal in his bedroom. Like it's huge, like it takes up an entire wall. And I was just laughing because I knew he would say it was Cersei.
So that's your pleasure. You love Game of Thrones, right? And was the last season satisfying to you, or were you empty?
No, I hated the last season. It was terrible. But like to show, I guess, how much of a Game of Thrones fan I am, me and my friends were studying abroad in England, and we went all the way to Croatia where they were filming the last season to go visit the sets and like reenact some of the things. So I am a huge fan. Did not like season 8.
Did not like, right? Because I know it was very controversial. I think it's because you were just sad it was going to end, and there was nothing that could have filled your cup because.
You could say that.
Right. You just felt a deep sense of loss. Right. So I'm so psyched to have you here. I've watched a lot of conversations with students who attend Ivy League schools. And, I was telling you before we started this, a lot of times I just don't feel like I get to know the people. It's like, it's more about how do I get in as opposed to you're in and what's that experience? What's that experience like? For you, and I can start with me. I'll start with Athena. Was Yale your first choice? I mean, did you really want to go here? Did you get
It was
your first choice?
I applied early action.
That was your first choice.
Yeah, in high school as a senior. And there are a couple of reasons why it was my first choice. I liked that I went to boarding school, so I liked that it was like decently close to home for me. My previous boarding school was 6 hours away from where I live. So that was a huge factor. I liked that it was like a semi-urban campus. I liked that it had like a smaller engineering department relative to like some of its peer schools, good financial aid, that sort of thing. So those were like the main factors influencing my decisions. I also liked that people really seem to care a lot about the arts and like the humanities.
Yeah. So that drew you. So you at Yale, were you kind of toying between a couple other, or were you torn between a couple other schools?
Yale was definitely like my top choice by far, but I think Columbia was also a pretty strong contender. Again, because I'm a city girl, and I love the idea of just like going to college in the city. And Columbia has a really strong engineering school. But ultimately, Yale kind of like went out because I wanted to be like, I don't want to be too close to home. Did you get into Columbia? I got a likely, so I applied early to Yale, got in, and then I applied to Columbia, and then they sent me an email saying that like I would probably get in March, but then I committed to Yale before the official.
Right. Okay, cool. So you didn't quite get rejected. But Kahlil, so tell me, was Yale your first choice?
Yale was
Be honest, man.
Yeah, no, Yale was not my first choice, actually. Actually, my first choice school was MIT. So I did a lot of like STEM and engineering in high school. And like a lot of what I wanted to do in the future, or at least what I thought at the time, was like engineering, especially like biomimicry. I used to love that. Looking at
what?
Biomimicry, so like robots that mimic like animals in one way or another, whether it be like a robot that can run really fast by looking at like the bone structure of a cat, or there was something on Jimmy Fallon where there's a robot that's a snake that can like go around different places for rescue missions. That was something I was really passionate about. I ended up getting into MIT and Yale, and the reason that I switched was actually during my campus visits. So it's really unfortunate, I guess, that this year's like round of admits don't get to visit campus because of the virus. But I think when I visited MIT's campus and visited Yale's campus and got to compare them, I found that Yale people were just generally, I don't know, I guess I want to say like more talkative, more like, I don't want to say presentable, but like really, they were more open and social. And I think that's what I found as the main difference between both campuses. So in the end, I like really liked the vibe of Yale a lot more. I like the liberal arts aspect and that people were well-rounded and what they were learning academically as opposed to more like technical focus from a tech school. So I ended up choosing Yale because of that. Yeah.
Interesting. So you rejected MIT.
In a way, yeah.
But you were accepted, man. Like, you're like, no, I'm not going to go. I mean, you know, it's a good problem to have, but, you know, that could be torn. Were you torn in any way? Because, you know, MIT's pretty darn good and exciting. I mean, Yale's not so bad either. But
Yeah,
like,
no, I was definitely torn. I think when I was, because I applied to a lot of schools. I didn't get into like Harvard or Stanford.
oh, tell us about that when you
Yeah,
opened those letters.
I think you were trying to get at this. Yeah. So I think I got flat out rejected from Harvard. And I wasn't really looking, once again, MIT was my #1 school either way. So it wasn't like as devastating, but it was like, oh, like this is kind of sad. And I also got waitlisted for Stanford. But I think for MIT is a special case because I applied early for it. And in the December, like it was December 15th when the decision came out. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I ended up getting deferred. And I think after that, one of the kids in my school was like, oh, if you're deferred, you're not going to get in. Like, that's not what happens. And I ended up actually getting in the second round in the spring. So that was like really interesting.
That kid never knows anything.
Exactly. You can't
Right.
listen to peers. That's #1 rule.
Right. There's always that kid. So, right. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, just because, you know, a lot of people deal with that kid who's like, and everyone who's like, hey, it's not going to work. And like, boom, it did. So it's good. So you got rejected from Harvard and Stanford. That's great. And then you rejected MIT. Because I want to talk a lot about rejection. I like rejection. I mean, I don't like getting rejected, but I think it's a really fascinating topic. And I think especially when I'm talking to 3 high-achieving students who also happen to be 3 high-achieving Black students on a campus that's predominantly not the same race. There's a lot of fitting in, not fitting in, dealing with judgment, dealing with rejection that I really want to dig in and unpack because like that part I find fascinating. I know you gave me permission before we talked about that because like that's exciting. Like I'm excited for that. So we'll get ready for that. But so Seyade, tell me about, was Yale your first choice?
It was kind of my first choice. Well, I didn't really have a first choice, just in that I didn't know what I was looking for. I originally thought I wanted to kind of be in New York and do engineering. So I did apply to Columbia's engineering program, but upon realizing that I wanted to keep my options open, I decided that Yale was the better fit just because there wasn't like a separate school so I could try things out. And like everything was flexible.
So you weren't uptight. Were you uptight? Were you nervous about this?
I was nervous about, I guess, I was more nervous about like my options financially and like how much financial aid I would receive from different universities. But other than that, I was like very okay with going to whatever school.
Yeah, you knew wherever you'd land, you'd be okay. So Athena, are you like a nervous person? Are you an anxious person?
I think I definitely feel those feelings. But I've over the years, I've definitely grown better at like just kind of not acting on those nerves. So I think regardless of how I'm feeling, I do tend to like keep my behavior pretty steady, keep my speech pretty steady.
So and Kahlil, are you like a relaxed person or are you like a nervous, anxious dude?
The latter. I'm definitely like I would definitely get anxious and nervous about a lot of things. Weirdly, that drives a lot of like what I do and like my like the pressure that I put on myself to do things, which is healthy, but I do get nervous a lot.
Yeah. Okay, good. So it's helpful to know. And then Seyade, and I love your name, and I hope again I'm saying it perfectly right. Am I?
It's all, you're doing well.
No, because I love names that aren't just, you know, one syllable. that I can enjoy. So, and I always want to make sure I say it well. You know, I just realized I don't think I asked what you would be doing on April 7th at whatever time it is. Did I ask you?
No, on April 7th, I would probably be at work. Yeah, at this
What
time I
job?
would be at work. I work at the Afro-American Cultural Center. I would just be on a shift, making sure things are running smoothly. Yeah.
Is that a hard job?
No, it's fun. People are always coming in and out. You get to like know the community better. Yeah.
So you get to, so that job is an important job. Is that a work study job for you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like a normal campus job.
Cool. You know, I wanted to talk to you. You talked about the financial piece, and I don't know if Athena, if the financial piece was important to you. Was that important to you as well?
For sure, it definitely like drove what schools I considered. For the most part, if you were to look at my college list, like I made junior year, I mostly like focused on schools that met like 100 or like as much displayed financial need as possible.
Right.
And I think that probably would have driven my final decision more. I mean, I was lucky enough to get into Yale, which has like excellent financial aid relative to other schools. But even if I got into a school, like if I liked two schools equally and one had a better financial aid package, I would have chosen that one.
Yeah, that's great. And Kahlil, was that a factor for you?
Yeah, it actually was. So I got a full scholarship for a school called Washington University in St. Louis. And my
Yeah.
parents like really, really wanted me to go there. And they're like, you have to, like, we cannot afford any of the Ivy Leagues. But what I told them is if I went to Yale, I'd make sure that I'd pay for it myself at some point. So like luckily I had the privilege for my parents to have like the liquid wealth to like fund it for right now. But like I made that promise and I told them I'd like become rich enough to pay for it. And luckily they budged.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's, so you had a full ride to Wash U, which is, again, like these are great places that people would be psyched to go to. But the money part, so I talk to a lot of students, I meet a lot of students from communities where they think they can't go to college. They don't understand the idea that if you dream so big and get in, you might be able to get a full ride. Like you might be able to get almost 100%. And I'm curious. And again, you know, I ask questions. I'm kind of annoying because I will ask any question and you don't have to answer them. And sometimes I might push your personal boundaries a little bit. And if I do, just be like, I don't want to talk about that or I don't want specifics, but I would love to dig a little deeper. So Athena, when it comes to the cost of like what you're actually paying, are you comfortable sharing that? So that somebody who thinks, you know, I can't afford it, like, you know, what is this really costing you?
I honestly don't think I mean, it's really not costing us that much. So what's nice about Yale at least is that even though like on paper the tuition's approaching what like $60,000, the financial aid is very generous. So it's like with like my summer job, I can pay like whatever tuition I owe Yale pretty
Mhm.
easily, and then I use my campus job to like fund my day-to-day expenses. So like my parents aren't really spending anything out of pocket. And then I recently won a scholarship from the American Chemical Society, which like pays for thank you,
Congratulations for you. That is
which
so
pays
awesome.
tuition, which pays my tuition, and then so I just keep my summer money and my campus money, so it's not bad.
Nice. So now you got some bucks.
Yeah.
Right. You got some dollars. That's cool. So how did you win that chemical scholarship?
I was on FastWeb, so like there are a lot of different databases you can use to find scholarship opportunities. And you just kind of like enter in information about yourself, and then they suggest things to you. I found out about the American Chemical Society. If anyone in the audience is from an underrepresented racial minority, so like Native American, Hispanic, or Black, you can apply to it.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure when. I think the application round for this year might have been finished, but you just have to be majoring in a chemical science. I just applied to that, waited, and I found out in May that I got it. So
Wow. So it took you how long to complete the application?
maybe a week and a
Yeah.
half to get a recommendation, but it wasn't too bad. The application wasn't very long.
The amount of time, right? And you did it on FastWeb and you actually like that's crazy. So that's beautiful. So you actually can get scholarships there. And then Seyade, do you have tell me about the money. Like give me like how much do you pay or roughly, or, you know, how can people go here who feel like they don't have money?
Yeah, so my situation's been a little different from year to year, But I guess like my first year, I came in and like did not pay a single penny. And then on top of that, so Yale, like, depending on how far away you live, will give you a certain refund for like books, other like day-to-day expenses and flights. And then you can apply that, like you can request to get that, and then they just pay you in your bank account. So like I technically made money off of Yale my first year.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then the second year, so that's a really interesting point you brought up, is that one year you might get money, but then like, how do you know that you're going to have enough to pay for it the second and third and fourth year?
Well, in my case, it wasn't like due to university policies. It was more just due to like my parents'
Right.
financial situation changing. But yeah, I would say that between first year, I think Kahlil can speak more to this because he knows more about the policy. But between like my first year and now, Yale's financial aid policies have become more generous. So I think like the quota for what, like the cutoff for where you owe Yale no money has increased.
Right. Right. And did you want to add anything to that, Kahlil?
Yeah, so I can talk about the specific change, but before it used to be families whose income is $65,000 or below would get, I don't think the term is called full financial aid, but their parents would not have to contribute to their Yale experience. There's only one part where the student would have to like raise funds for their personal expenses, including travel. And now that threshold has increased to $75,000 or below in terms of income.
Right. So I had one student in a panel who talked to all of these freshmen. I'm sorry, she was talking to seniors in high school, and she's like, I have to tell you guys, like, not having money is great because, the less you have, the more people want to help you. And that part of getting help and asking for help, I know you're all achievers and you're at a place where there's a lot of really smart people who have achieved. Tell me about a time where you felt really dumb, and tell me what you did about it. Kahlil, when's the last, have you felt dumb or like an imposter, or maybe your freshman year, sophomore year, was there a time where you felt that way?
Yeah. So you asked me earlier if I'm a good debater, and I think the first time I really like felt like, I don't know what the word is, like not up to the par with my peers at Yale was my first seminar, and it was a class about religion. It was called Cosmology and Literature. And it was like a class about like the Bible and like some other things. And I grew up like religious. So there was one debate that happened between like me and a kid who's like not so religious, like fair to say, I guess, atheist, about the Bible. And I just got destroyed because I just did not know how to debate or like anything. And I was like, I had to really rethink my entire life, but then also my skills against other students. I think that was the first time I really felt dumb. To what I did about it, I mean, I talked to my professor. He gave me some hints, and then like as the class went on and on, I started like understanding how people debate, how people like argue for what they believe in, and how they prepare beforehand to make sure that they're there and are ready to refute anything that anyone says. So like I think that's the first time I really felt dumb at Yale.
Right. Sure. Right. I feel dumb all the time. Like I didn't think I was smart till like a few years ago. So I have a dumb imposter complex. So I know a lot of students when they're in this new place that can happen. Athena, did that happen to you? Did you ever feel you maybe not good enough, question yourself, your abilities?
Yeah, there's definitely been a few instances like Kahlil, a lot of it being related to academics. So I started taking German in high school, and now I'm at like a really high level German class at Yale. And, it's a foreign language. So I think, especially this semester, I'm taking a class called the Afro-German Experience. And it's like conducted in German. It's my first time taking German since fall semester last year. Getting into that class and seeing like how good everyone else's German was, and then like having to like knowing I was being measured to these people who I feel like have excellent German. I definitely did feel like my German wasn't good enough, or that like I wasn't as talented at language learning.
Did you get an F or a D, or like did you get a bad grade in any of your classes?
I'm in this class right now. I can write and read better than I can speak German, but I definitely have been focusing on my diction and on like my sense of fluency and listening that sort of thing.
And now you are a sophomore, and just so other people know, and I like to introduce this as we go, but Athena is a sophomore. Just to recap, from Brooklyn, New York. You went to Phillips Exeter, right, Academy. Which is again a place where I think they teach you how to ask questions, right? Like if you need help, you're taught to ask for help, because I think that's like a big thing. A lot of people really struggle asking for help because people might judge them if they ask for help. And I'm sure as president, you have to be really wonderful at helping people to be comfortable to know that you're not going to judge them so that they can let you know how they feel. And also Athena is president of incoming operations for
Called AIESEC.
AIESEC.
AIESEC. Yeah.
AIESEC. Tell me about AIESEC.
So it's an international youth-run nonprofit that was founded in the late 40s, I believe, and the idea is to promote youth leadership through cross-cultural exchanges. So we basically coordinate volunteer exchanges for Yale students leaving the country and then students from abroad coming into New Haven. Nice. And each of the exchanges is focused around a sustainable development goal from the UN.
Right, that's great. And then you're also an executive board member for the annual Black Solidarity Conference. So, this is. Let me ask you, Kahlil, what do you think of Athena? What do you think her best quality is?
I think Athena's best quality, I guess, from my perspective. So me and Seyade were her big sibs. We're a year above her, and we both live in the same dormitory building called Timothy Dwight. And within that, we're assigned like little sibs to mentor throughout the first year. So I've had a very personal relationship. I say her best quality is probably her honesty. I think that's something that definitely stands out. Athena's never afraid to like say her opinion or her beliefs on the matter, and to communicate her values about a lot of different things, and like enlighten the people around her. So I think that's definitely her best quality from the perspective and the time that I've had with her.
Yeah, Athena, does that ever get you in trouble because you tell people the truth and not everybody likes to hear the truth?
I think delivery matters. I try to say my truth in a way that's like in a way that doesn't like exclude other people, in a way that shows how open I am to hearing alternative points of view.
Yeah.
If it does get me into trouble, I can't say I care that much. Like, you win some, you lose some. It'll all be fine. So far, I think people have been really receptive.
Right. Mine broke up. My sound broke up during that one moment. I don't think I heard everything, but that's great. And then Seyade, tell me a little bit about, tell me about Kahlil real quickly. Like what's Kahlil's best qualities?
I would say Kahlil's best qualities are like, when he has a goal, he's very determined and he can like focus on that goal and plan out the steps and like make sure that he's like on track for reaching that goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Very.
So he's just good with follow through.
Very goal driven. Okay. And then I think Kahlil, Seyade, why don't you tell me, or no, I think Athena, you need to tell me about Seyade's best qualities.
Yeah. I think for me, whenever I think of Seyade, I definitely think of her sense of humor and just like the joy with which she approaches life. And that's not to say she's happy all the time. That's not all what I want to say, but I think Seyade's one of those people who can always like find something to laugh at in a situation. And like, even when things are hard, and even when, everyone else sort of has these perceptions of how she should be feeling about a situation, she is one of those people who manages to have like a positive perspective.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So it's hard to have that. And I try to have a positive perspective, and I use humor to really cover up what I'm really feeling. Because I'm really sensitive and I get really uncomfortable and I get a hard time. So Seyade, tell me a little bit about, what is it like to be on a campus where you are a minority? I'm trying to find a clever way to say minority without saying where you don't look like everybody else who's there. But, for somebody who is in a community where they don't look like everyone else and don't come from a place where most people come from, or the predominant number of people, what does that feel like? How have you processed that? And how can other people learn from those experiences? So if you can give me that, and I know you have some opinions.
Yeah, I would say my whole educational experience, starting from kindergarten, has been like that. So it's just kind of been the same for the past, I don't know, however many, 13, 15 years. But on Yale's campus, I would say the way that I deal with it best is just finding the pockets where I do feel like I belong, and whether that's like surrounding myself with other Black students, like Athena and Kahlil, or even outside of like Black students, just finding places where I do feel accepted and safe, just like presenting as myself.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to find your people and to find your places. But when you visit campus and you walk on campus and you see very few people who look like you, how does one identify schools where they can find their places, and how did you do that?
So yeah, I would say originally I was very hesitant. It kind of was a turnoff in the beginning, but Yale has the largest like the Black Student Center in North America. And that was definitely a big draw, just like having a physical space designated for Black students, because a lot of schools of like similar tier don't have that. And then talking
Did you visit the building when you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of these questions are, if a student is in high school and they're visiting campus or they're part of a big tour, because I know a lot of programs will bring students, did you go to that building before you went to Yale? Like, did you walk through that building as a high school student?
Yeah, so when I visited with with my dad, I did not. But during Bulldog Days, and I know y'all don't have that this year, but during Bulldog Days, I was able to visit the building, and honestly, that's where I spent like most of my Bulldog Days. But yeah, that was a big selling point for me.
Yeah. So, oh, my heart just, I feel so bad for those who can't walk into the building and Bulldog Days is newly admitted student days, right? Where people come and you get a flavor of what it's like. And for you, it was walking into that building. And, you know, if there's anyone watching this who can't walk into that building and wants to reach out, like, I know not only are the three of you are so welcoming, but there are so many other people, and virtually to be able to connect and know that your arms are open and that this exists is really a wonderful thing to communicate. Athena, so tell me, was that an issue for you? Has your race and being a minority, has that played a role in your college decision-making and college life?
Certainly in high school, so I also went to a predominantly white high school, with, you know, a similar like background of having been designated for white males, all that stuff. And then in high school, I ended up being pretty involved in student activism against racism on campus. So I think going into college, I was definitely looking for places where I saw enough commitment to countering institutionalized racism, and providing like those spaces, those physical spaces for students of color, like Seyade was describing. And so for me, like what really like sold me on Yale was when I was at my revisit day, visiting the Afro-American Cultural Center, and then just being like, there's a room called the Founders Room where there are like all these portraits of all the people who have like shaped Black Yale, like being in that space, like eating like Southern soul food with other Black students and like connecting with them. I'd say that was definitely like the moment I like knew that Yale was where I wanted to go.
When did that happen, that you shared those moments?
It was during my Bulldog days. So again, like revisit days, the fact that revisit days can't happen this year is really, really tough. But I think it was more about like the connections I formed with like the students that I met. So like, and as much as people watching this can reach out to people at the schools they're considering, and learn as much about that life and that experience as possible, I definitely encourage that.
Yeah, it's so hard to capture that virtually, but I could feel it. I mean, at least with all of you, I really truly can feel that. Kahlil, tell me about your experience. I know I was doing some reading, and I know when people mention the first Black president of YCC, you kind of shrug that off. It's not something you really like to lead with, but how has that impacted you and your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it always definitely starts with the pre-Yale. So I did go to a public schools, and then my elementary and middle school were majority Black and Hispanic, but I did make a transition in high school to a majority Asian, actually, magnet program for technology, STEM, and all that. So coming to Yale is the first like majority white space I've been in, I think, my entire life, which is actually pretty interesting. But I think I guess one thing that you like asked in your question was like walking around and not really seeing people that look like you. And I actually don't feel that that's something I've had to experience because I've like made it an effort to connect with other Black students. There's something at Yale called Cultural Connections, which is a pre-orientation program, which lasts like the week before school actually starts when you're a first year. And I did that, and that's where I met most of the friends that I had throughout my first year. And if I met other people, it was usually friends of the friends that I made in Cultural Connections. So I always had someone. I always spent a lot of time at the AFAM house. Last year, I was part of the Black Men's Union as the treasurer and the board. And the year before that, I was a member. So there's a lot of different spaces and a lot of different ways that I've made sure to surround myself with people who have my experience and can support me and understand and empathize with what I'm going through. So for that reason, it hasn't been too much of a crutch. If anything, I think it's been definitely like a thing that's helped me through like mentorship channels as well as support. So you mentioned being the first Black student body president. I think Yale is also generally like a more liberal, left-leaning campus. So there's not a lot of direct or explicit pushback around like initiatives for like race or gender minorities or underrepresented students in other ways. So I've definitely found that I've been supported, and I've definitely found that I've been able to surround myself with people like me.
Yeah. When you were in high school, was there anybody on campus who you connected with? I know Bulldog Days is when a lot of you have said you made that connection, but beforehand, one of the things I always encourage students to do is to find their people and find their places. And when you start off your first year is find places where you can be around people who are from similar backgrounds, who look like you, who have similar histories, just, you know, as a launching pad. Was there anyone when you were in high school who you were able to connect with, who helped any of you, who were current students? Did you get that?
Not directly. I mean, I didn't know anyone that went to an Ivy League or anything, but I think when I was at Bulldog Days, there was one person named Erica Hairston. She recently graduated. She owns her own tech business, very successful. But I talked to her, and she actually encouraged me, talking about the Yale Computer Science program and like how much she enjoyed it at the time. Which, upon coming to Yale, I kind of rethought that whole thing. But there was definitely people that I met when I got a chance to visit around this time in the year that did support me.
What do you think you were all, this is an open-ended question for anyone. What were you most insecure about? If you could go back to your spring of your senior year in high school, the thing that you were maybe embarrassed or uncomfortable about or worried about, is there anything that comes to mind that you think other students maybe are thinking about right now where you can kind of inform them?
I don't know if I was necessarily like embarrassed about this, but I was kind of like concerned about social dynamics at Yale, just in that, like in high school, it's very cliquey and there's kind of not necessarily a hierarchy, but to some people there's a hierarchy. And I was kind of like worried about how that would appear at Yale and like how I would navigate that. But very quickly, I kind of learned like, Yale is like too big for people to know each other and like care about who's friends with, like to truly care about who's friends with who.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a problem. Like, I feel like you find the people that you vibe with the most, and like nobody's going to be judging you for that.
Yeah. Did anybody else worry about the social dynamic?
Building off of Seyade's point, I think for me coming into college, what I was worried about was like how I was gonna like, I was like very firm that I wasn't gonna like drink or like, you know, just like engage in like any use of substances. And I think especially like that first couple of months of school, that's like what a lot of students end up doing. And like a lot of students like bring that behavior in from high school. So for me, I was worried about like how, like, would these people like me? Would they think I was cool if I like was the one person at a party that like wasn't drinking anything? And maybe there's some people in your audience who can connect to that. But I will say that if you're with a group of people and they make you feel like crap for not drinking, then they're not the people you should be around. Like, I would go to parties with my friends. I would be totally sober. Like, they would be drunk and we would like all have a great time, laughing and dancing. And so I think what I really like about the community I found at Yale is that like there's never really any pressure to do anything you don't want to do, and people like you for you and not for like what you do or don't do. People aren't really worried about, you know, like that sort of thing.
So you can be sober and have a good freshman year?
Yes. Believe it or not.
Right, you all agree with that. Kahlil, do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
He's like, no.
No, I do. I think one
I
funny
know you
thing
did.
is I used to go to parties sober, but like go so hard, as they call it, like dance and everything. So
Yeah.
people thought I was like blackout drunk. And that was actually something to deal with like for the first week of being at Yale.
So you wouldn't be blackout drunk. You would just dance and be crazy. People would think you were. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Are any of you in love right now? You almost fell over. You know, college love, relationships. You don't have to confess your love, but are any of you in a relationship right now? A romantic relationship?
No, a lot of my friends are, and I think a lot of people. But I do think generally, like Yale, especially college, is not. If I wouldn't say it's not, but I think there's definitely like there's a large pool of people who do get in relationships. There's a large pool of people who are like remain single throughout their college experience. I definitely think balancing relationship with the Yale experience is something that's very difficult and you have to be very mindful of doing, which is probably why a lot of people don't engage in it. But I think
have you had, and this is where I push, man. Have you been in a relationship, a romantic relationship since you've been there? No?
I have not, no.
How is that possible? You are this incredibly dynamic individual who has so much to offer. You're a leader. You're an amazing catch. Do you have any secret crushes right now?
I think everyone probably does have secret crushes. I just personally haven't found the time.
Oh, dude, this is where it gets ugly, because I think I have to stay on track, because I talk to a lot of students about this. But if let's say someone super attractive approached you and it was like, hey, Kahlil, you know what? You know, do you have time to grab dinner? I'd love to just visit with you and have dinner. I've always found you very attractive, and I'd just like to share a meal. Do you have time for that? What would you say?
I would probably. I mean, I could go on dates. I've gone on dates.
Did we freeze? Is this a fake? I think this is a fake freeze. What was that?
Is it frozen? Is it still frozen?
You pretended to freeze.
Okay, no, I didn't. But that's funny though. That's funny. I'd say I've been on dates before. It's never butted into a relationship or anything like that. And there's definitely like times where like someone could say that, and then we like go out or whatever, and we like just end up as friends. Because I think definitely like the first step is definitely not time consuming, but I think when you commit into a relationship that is a lot of time and effort required from both parties, that is not necessarily something that I've been able to like really fit in.
Absolutely. You know, and I only push because I just think I think we can always make time. And and this is just like a side note. And again, if you find me annoying, you could also put in the comments like, Harlan, stop asking me about, because we can communicate with each other through our thing, through our text message here. But I truly believe, like, if you know, as much as we push ourselves inside the classroom and in leadership roles, when do we learn how to be emotionally vulnerable and get hurt? And the thing is, we don't really spend a lot of time on that. And one of the things I love to do is to help students to be vulnerable and to get their hearts broken, only to know what they like and how that feels so that they can do it again and learn. Because, I mean, how many times have you failed as a leader, as president? Have you gotten hurt as president? Let me ask you this. What's been your most, your toughest part, the time where you questioned yourself? I mean, where maybe you got rejected or didn't get great feedback. Has there been a time where you got hurt and had to recover?
There's a lot. I think the first one that comes to mind right now is I was telling you we had to postpone elections because of the virus. That was voted on, but there's actually been a lot of like flack coming from some select students calling us fascists and like other crazy things. And I'm like, it's a decision that we felt was necessary. But there's expected pushback, especially being a public figure, opening yourself up to that level of criticism, where people don't have to hold back. They don't have to worry about your mental health or your emotions or anything. They're there to criticize your decisions because of the role that you're in. So that's definitely something that I've dealt with, and kind of have to fortify yourself against that level of criticism.
Yeah, that's, you know what, I think that's just part of being a leader and part of being out there is dealing with rejection and dealing with adversity. And that's really, for anyone watching, wondering why would I ask you about your love life? It really ties into emotional risk taking. And I think that's one thing that really is lost on students going to college is dealing with the emotions, you know, dealing with the stress, dealing with the anxiety, dealing with depression and hopelessness and being in such a competitive environment. And I know that when it comes to students' mental health, Yale's no exception of students really struggling in that regard. Have any of you had to deal with that? And again, you know, very personal question, but um, have you had any times where you really felt painfully alone, where you weren't sure you would be able to make it through? You know, could any of you speak to that? Or times, maybe it doesn't have to be that deep and dark, but you know, in terms of your mental health, how do you balance that, and has that been a challenge?
I can speak a little to this. Um, I feel like for the past year, I've kind of like gotten into this slump of just feeling very like exhausted and like unmotivated. Second semester sophomore year, I definitely slept through a lot of it, which was not good socially, like personally, physically, etc. But I think that I feel like just constantly like checking in with yourself and like I don't know, reaching out to people to support you is a large part of it.
Does Yale have a good counseling services? Do they offer some really solid mental health resources? Or could they do better? I mean, is that things that you can work on?
Yeah, I think that just they're kind of like under resourced, which is crazy at a university like Yale. But a lot of people will like go in and be unable to make appointments, or like the appointments won't be available until like 2 weeks after you call in. And so if you need help in that moment, it's just difficult.
Yeah, I think that's also where you're talking about the Afro-American Cultural Center, the African American Cultural Center. And like, if you can't get that help, it sounds like you have your people, right? Like you have your people who can help you and support you. And that's how you've been able to get through this, which is important. I have a few more questions for you. I know we kind of gone all over. When it comes to the clickiness piece, I know that as a residential student, it's kind of like Harry Potter a little bit, right? Like with your buildings and isn't that how it is? Like explain the living arrangements. Maybe I'm wrong. I think you have like buildings and like names of buildings and like it's a whole thing. I don't think there's a hat that decides.
I can explain it to the best of my
Thank you.
ability. So you're sorted randomly when you come into school, unless you have like an immediate family member that was in a particular college during their time at Yale, and then you can request to be in the same one. But other than that, it's totally random. And in each residential college, there are 14 of them, I believe, is basically a complex of smaller dormitories connected by a basement. So in the basement, there will be like a student kitchen. There will be what we call a buttery, which is like a late night restaurant, diner sort of space.
What's the best one?
TD's, obviously.
Is
TD's
that
my residential college.
right? Okay.
Yeah, and then they have like their own laundry rooms, and then each residential college has its own dining hall and library. So yeah, so and then I think they tend to come in pairs, so like each one will have a rival college, and they have like their own chance. So it's really meant to be a microcosm of the Yale community. So rather than like being focused around all students having like a similar major, being from like just having like a similar background, it's supposed to be a subset of Yale as a whole.
Gotcha. And then when it comes to roommates, because I know a lot of people get worried about roommates, you all lived on campus your first year, right? Correct. And who is still friends with their freshman roommate?
I'm still roommates with my freshman year roommate.
You are still roommates. All right. That never ended. But Kahlil, no?
No, so I am friends with my freshman year roommate. I'd say we had a rough period in the beginning. But now that we don't live near each other, I think like our vibes are like really similar and like we're able to like get along. I think it's a living together that made kind of the rough patch happen.
So it was a random. You didn't choose your roommate. None of you chose your roommates, right?
You don't, but you put in a few like preferences on like living conditions. So like whether or not you like to party, whether or not like you're really clean, whether or not you.
What were yours?
Mine, I kind of like to party, so I put like I think it was a spectrum. I put like a 4 out of the 5 or something. I'm not too clean. I'm not too worried about that. There were a few other things that I didn't remember. I think like I liked sports or something like that. I said, which I kind of didn't, but like it was I don't know, whatever.
Right.
So there's like a lot of things that you like kind of choose, kind of like sometimes you get like you do it to like get the type of roommate you think you'd be vibing with, and other times you just like really focus on like some things that you have to have for your living space.
Were you worried about living with someone?
I was actually, yeah. I mean, I never did it in my life before. I mean, I've lived with people, like I never had to share my room.
Were you in a room where you can actually like look and see someone sleeping? Like you're like, wow, that person, I can watch the person sleep.
It was worse than that. I was on a bunk bed and I was on the top bunk for the entire year. So like every time I went to bed, I had to like step over this person. Every time they went to bed or got out, they would shake up the bunk bed. And there was a time where I fell out of the top bunk bed onto the ground. And my roommate's a heavy sleeper, so it took him like 4 seconds to realize that I fell. And he's like, "Oh, what happened? What happened?" I'm like, "I would have been dead by now." Like,
You
yeah,
fell. You actually fell. And then what was the big disagreement? Because I know a lot of people are worried about roommates, and I think the idea that you survived it, right? Like you survive it, but like what was the biggest problem, biggest disagreement? Like where did things go wrong, and how did you get through it?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things. I think there's like this book out there that's like a naked roommate and like other things you have to deal with in college. And I think that's like definitely one of the first few things, just like being in a literally like a space with someone so close to them. Like I think items were a big deal. So like my roommate felt comfortable like using my items, whether it be like I don't know, like Vaseline or like lotion or like clothes. There was a few like they were very open, but I wasn't as open as they were. So I don't know if they like really realized that.
You had more than one using your lotion?
Just one, because that was the person I lived with, my roommate. There's suite mates, which are kind of in the same like
Okay, gotcha.
suite, but like there's only one roommate that was the person
Right.
that underneath me. So like stuff like that, little things kind of like added.
Right. But you got through it. Hey, you know that book, the Naked Roommate book. I know that book very well because I wrote it. I don't know if you.
Wow. That's crazy.
Isn't that awesome, man?
That's crazy.
I love that you referred to it like casually because I don't think I ever told you when we put this together. And Seyade, you were like my connection to all of this. So yeah, that's the book I wrote. So I'm glad it kind of helped you, I guess. Maybe did it help you?
Yeah, it was literally the experience that I had, like exactly.
Right. That's cool. And then Seyade, tell me, roommate situation, great, bad, terrible.
Yeah, so I feel like my roommate and I got along like okay. There was a few disagreements throughout the year and like she brought like people home without telling me beforehand. But other than that, I feel like we got along in terms of like cleanliness, just kind of like keeping each like when we used each other's stuff, we were always asked each other about it. Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of people listening to you and they didn't hear anything that you said after the part where your roommate would bring people over. I think the rest of it kind of went blank. So explain that to me because that's not something that's that's happened to a lot of people before. And then how do you deal with that in a way where you can still, survive and coexist?
So the first time it happened, I was just so surprised and like, because I woke up to noises and I was like so surprised and shocked as to what was happening. So I just got up and left. And then I actually, yeah, it was
the middle of the night.
It was like 3:30 a.m. I just got up and left. I actually locked myself out of my room, unfortunately. But the good thing was Kahlil lived down a floor, so then I crashed on his couch.
Oh, do you remember her knocking on the door?
No, so their door wasn't locked. So like he was still asleep in his room and I just let myself in.
You just walked into his room. Right.
Yeah. Um, but the next morning we had a conversation and I was
Will you
like,
tell me how that went? Will you actually, because again, you've been there, you've done it, you survived. Can you actually tell me like what you said as opposed to just telling me kind of like, pretend I'm the roommate, you know? Hey, Seyade, it's good
yeah.
to see you. What's going on?
um, so I don't really remember the details, but I remember I was in the shower and she noticed I was in the shower and she was like, "Oh, about last night, like I'm sorry." And I was like, "Hold on, just let me finish and we can talk about this." And afterwards I just kind of like told her, um, I'm okay with people coming over as long as I know beforehand and like as long as like we're communicating about it. Being surprised is just not something I'm down for.
Yeah, you don't want to listen to that.
Yeah.
Right. You just got out. That's good. I'm going to use you for the next edition of The Naked Roommate because you've got a fresh story. I've got a whole story with that. That's really great. That's helpful. But you survived, and I think that's really the important thing is that you all survived. And Athena, you ended up with a great close friend, and you both also survived, and that's wonderful. I'm going to wrap things up shortly, but I want to make sure that the students who are stressed out, who are like so focused on Ivies or have parents who are giving them that pressure and, like, is it that good? Like, is Yale that good? Is this, I mean, I know it's a great place, but like, how do you feel about that whole race and how people define themselves and go through that? Do you have, I know you're in it, but if you have anything to share, I would love for you to speak to those students who are overwhelmed and whose lives are really dependent on being wanted and getting in.
I mean, I think this is something that was really emphasized to me at my senior year of high school is that like you bring yourself wherever you're going. And so like at the end of the day, a school can have all these wonderful qualities, but if you're not coming into it with like the right amount of initiative, the right amount of commitment to like making friends and like genuinely being open to what the school has to offer, then you're not going to have a good experience no matter where you are. And I think people also kind of place a lot of emphasis on like the first round of college applications. One of my really good friends from high school went to a school last year that she like didn't really like. She felt like she was being stifled there. She didn't feel like there was enough ambition. Actually, two of my friends were kind of in a similar situation, and they were both at pretty good, like really well-known, well-regarded liberal arts colleges. And they're like, yeah, like I don't like it here. And so they both just like reapplied and became transfer students. And now one of them is at Columbia where she's very happy. And the other one is at Northwestern. So I do think that like this round of college applications doesn't have to be the end all be all of your college experience. Like at the end of the day, if it really is that bad, you can try to transfer. And then I know a lot of people who like went to colleges that like were not their first choice, but they're as happy as can be. So.
Yeah. I think that's a really beautiful idea that if you're not happy at the first place, you can go somewhere else. Have you ever changed your major, Athena?
I know I've been pretty constant. I'm a chemical engineering major. I definitely have questioned it. Like I've considered double majoring in some other things, getting the certificate, dropping that. I did drop from like being an ABET accredited chemical engineering major to being like the less intensive version of the major.
Yeah.
So I'm technically not a chemical engineering major. I'm an engineering sciences chemical major.
Yeah.
And that decision was really driven by a desire to explore more of the humanities and just like my sense of intellectual curiosity. The ABET accredited engineering version would leave me like maybe 5 classes to choose what I want to do. And that just like wasn't for me.
Right. You're that's great that you've known what you want to do. Cause I know a lot of people switch around. Kahlil, tell me a little bit about the whole, quest to go to the Ivies and that experience and how students can frame that and think about that.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out for me is definitely what Athena said. Of course, you can transfer, but then also that you bring yourself to where you go. And I think the way that it resonates for me is, especially like when I was deciding change college I wanted to go to. And then also like during the admissions process entirely, I really had to introspect on like what skills do I have, and then like what college really means. And I think if you really like conceptualize a college, it's a place full of resources, full of other people. And I think at the end of the day, the most important thing in that entire equation is you and like your core values, your core skill sets. They can develop and they can like be made more acute and refined in the college experience, but you still are foundationally who you are. And the only thing that's changing is like, I guess like the amount of resources, maybe the name, but I think that does like, of course there's some way that it holds weight, but I think once again, like the most important part of the equation is you and who you are. And I think if you're really passionate and really driven and really like inspired and have really good like goals and have a drive to like change the world, whatever you want to do, you're going to do it wherever you are. You're going to take advantage of whatever resources are around you. You're going to be resourceful. You're going to talk to the people you need to talk to. You're going to be ambitious. You're going to make connections. You can do that anywhere. Of course, it's a little bit easier at a place like Yale because of the name, but you can still do that no matter where you are, if you are who you like, or if you are the person that's the type to do that.
Yeah. Well, you seem like you know what you want. Like you're not afraid to go after it and put yourself out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like yeah. And I think that I think, so my angle, you could tell me, and Seyade, I want to get to you as well. My angle is I think so many times people focus so much on being wanted that they lose sight of what they want. And the thing about graduates from schools like, and I went to a state school, I went to Indiana University, a very different environment, but people are going to want you, especially in certain fields. And when people want you, it's really wonderful because you don't have to think about what you want as much, and I think that there's so many students who are so focused on being wanted that they don't always know what they want. Have you always known, Kahlil, in terms of your major, have you always known what you wanted, or have you changed your major?
So that's a really good question. So I mentioned I was a computer science major when I first came to Yale, and I really didn't like it. There was one day where I completed this piece set that I was working on for like 20 hours. Piece set's basically like another word for homework assignment, but it was a long one full of coding, and I deleted it, or somehow, I don't want to say I deleted it, somehow it got deleted right before I submitted it, and I was devastated. I was yes, 20 hours. I started crying. I just couldn't. So I quickly changed my majors to econ because I was like, this is something I'm not going to do computer.
That day.
So I changed to economics. I thought it was the closest thing that I could do to like getting a job and like also like general a skill set that would be helpful anywhere. A mix of like humanities kind of and quantitative stuff with like the social science aspect of it. I realized I didn't like economics in my junior year. So basically last semester. And what I did really like actually was like advocacy, like writing, doing research. And I found that was really honed in upon in the history major. So that's what I ended up on now. I went from a computer science to a history major, pretty much the two sides of the spectrum.
Wow. That's it's different. And what would you want to do after you graduate?
Right now, I'm actually thinking about, because I don't know, there's like a few scholarships and like really prestigious things that I've been pushed towards like trying to like get, whether it be like Marshall or Rhodes. But I do definitely think I want to go to like a professional program after college. And right now I'm looking at a law school. I'm not sure which one, and I'm not sure what type of law, probably like litigation and criminal law. But that's kind of what I'm trying to go for right now.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. I love that you switched. And I think that Athena, you were touching on that as well, of that idea of experiencing something and giving yourself permission to change. At least the friends that went to those other liberal arts schools, and they gave themselves permission to change. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. So Seyade, tell me a little bit about that whole, the whole Ivy piece, and, is that meaningful to you? And when other people make that such an important part of them, how does that make you feel? And what do you think of all that?
Yeah, when I first got in, or like started going to Yale, I was kind of hesitant about it just because I was like, it doesn't seem like it's everything it's been caked up to be. Just in that, like, I don't know, in my classes, definitely great quality, at least a good number of them. Some of the classes at Yale are pretty bad, but for the most part, they were like good quality. It was good people, but I was kind of just skeptical in that, like, you can find great classes and good people at whatever college you go to.
Yeah.
But I think both Kahlil and Athena touched upon this. Just given it's like history, Yale does have all the Ivies just have a lot of resources and can connect you to a lot of opportunities. And even though it's not necessarily like fair, because who's to say that like we're better than other college students just because we go here, but it does kind of give you, it opens a lot of doors that you might not have had
Yeah,
access to.
I think that's very accurate. And I think wherever someone goes, and I think you touched on it, of walking into that building or being part of that Greek organization or professional organization or cultural organization or leadership organization where you can connect. Because I think for a lot of students, there's only so many students who can go to these schools, but there are so many ways to connect through national organizations, through community organizations, through activism. And I know all of you are really committed to, it seems, supporting youth, supporting other students, other minority, underrepresented students. So like, there's so many ways to find that connection if you want to find it. You'd say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think that just there's so many, I mean, Yale's not even that large of a school, but just like given its size, there's so many different pockets and clubs that will connect you to whatever you're interested in, whether that's within
Okay.
Yale or even outside of it.
So rapid fire round, because we're really getting close to the end here. Okay, this is the rapid fire round. So if you are a student, if you're a first year student and you want to be involved and want to meet people, easy access places where you're going to be welcomed and included, where should students look at Yale where first year students can find connection, community, people, and places? Rapid fire.
Their cultural center is always a good place to start.
Ross.
Yeah, rapid
Just cultural center, and it could be intramurals. It could be places where you sweat, places where you play, pray, live, learn, lead, love.
Dining halls.
Yeah, I was gonna say dining halls.
Volunteering clubs.
Is there a particular one?
Not in particular. I think like at least at Yale, there's so many, like there's such a strong like volunteer social service sector of campus. Like just take your pick and there.
People will want you. They won't reject you. It's open access.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true.
For volunteering.
Sure.
So you're thinking of, was there some of them you have to be, you know, I think that you have to be invited or welcomed, you know, or elected or something like that. So
yeah, it's annoying. You have to apply to a lot of extracurriculars, which is weird.
and then you get selected or not. So did any of you get rejected from extracurriculars?
Yeah, I got rejected from being a tour guide.
That's beautiful. Wow. That's crazy. You'd be the best tour guide ever.
That's what I thought. I mean, I gave a great speech, but then they rejected me. I think there's 4 rounds. The first round.
First round.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe one day. Do you want to apply again?
Probably. I don't think I'm able to. You can only apply as a first year and a sophomore.
Oh man, that's beautiful because you're awesome. Anybody else get rejected from clubs or orgs? First, second?
I got rejected from the board of a certain organization, but then I like reran the next year and got in. And then I also got rejected from a dance group.
Did you try again?
No.
No, you gave up on your dancing career?
You know, I realized what my capabilities were. I was honest with myself. Wasn't for me.
It's humility. That's why there's TikTok, you know.
Yeah.
And no one can reject you from TikTok, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got that going on. Is there a question that I didn't ask that you feel is a great question that you had asked when you went through this process? And there's a lot of questions I didn't ask. I was very intentional. I didn't ask about your SAT or ACTs. I didn't ask about your class rank. I assume it was pretty high, right? Like the answer is always going to be, it wasn't pretty high. Maybe I should have asked Athena.
No. I'm saying like, yeah, it wasn't bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, is that really important? Like people get, I mean, should I be asking you that?
I mean, I don't think it's like, obviously they are part of your application, but it's not the whole story.
Right. It's like we could just assume that it was high, whether it's like, 5 or 3 or 2, like who cares, right? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Like in most cases, there's like a threshold, and then once you're like past that threshold, doesn't like everyone's basically, now it's like, do you have that it?
What's your it factor, Athena? What's your it?
I don't know. Whatever they saw in me.
I'm going to ask everyone else if you don't tell me your it.
You were serious?
Yeah, what's your it? Because people want to know, like, everybody gets in. It's like, what's your it? Is it the essay writing? Is it your honesty, your, you know, your tenacity and going after what you want? Like, what's your it?
I think when I applied, my it was probably like my social activism. Like I said, I was really, really like prominent in student activism on campus and addressing and addressing and addressing like anti-racist
Yeah.
anti-racism on my campus. And I dedicated a lot of time to that. I also think I was really known for my writing, especially in the field of English and history.
Is that a sibling?
Yeah, it's my little brother.
Can I see him? Oh, he doesn't need to come on. But that's so cool. You've got a little, how old is he?
He's 5.
How awesome is that? He's got you. So, like, that's so awesome. What a lucky guy. That's amazing. Your it was activism and your writing. Seyade, what was your it? Can you share your it? Are you comfortable sharing your it? You might have a lot of its.
I don't know exactly what my it was, but I would say, yeah, I guess I would have to go through my application to see, but I would say it was like kind of similar to Athena, like a dedication to diversity, whether that was like racial, just kind of like socioeconomic ability in my own school.
Yeah, that was important. And Kahlil, what was your it? What do you think it was?
So, I mean, I got a chance to actually look at my admissions file recently, which was really interesting. And I think the thing that stood out for me actually was my interview. So I don't know if I had the best teacher recommendations. The teacher denied me, actually. I don't know what that problem was, but I tried my best on that part. But I know my interviews were good because my interviewer said that I had a really good smile and a good presence that was like confident but not too arrogant. So I took that and I was like, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely one of my stronger suits. I think also my essay was about like the STEM program that I was in and like continuing that, which is kind of ironic because I'm a history major now. But I think it's like a lot of the things that are more front facing within my application that worked out in my favor.
You know, I bet it worked out because you were passionate about it. 'Cause you seem like a guy who throws himself into what he really believes and feels. And I bet that came through. Like when you genuinely believe in what you're writing, because I'm a writer, and when I believe it, it's easier to be vulnerable and for that to come through on the paper. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else. You're so fantastic. I want to end it with this, and I want to end it with the question. If you were talking to an 8th grader, okay, an 8th grader who's in the middle of a place where they don't have a person, they don't have a place, they perhaps have a dream, and maybe they don't look like everybody else and feel like they've got a lot stacked against them. If you can talk directly to that 8th grader, and for Athena, you can talk to your little brother if you want, or you could talk to that 8th grader. But I'll start with Athena. I'll start with you, and then Seyade, and then we'll go to Kahlil. Okay. So Athena, talk to that 8th grader, please.
I tell that 8th grader that the most important thing they can do for themselves.
Will you actually talk to the 8th grader? Like actually talk. Oh, the light. I love your little. I've got a little guy too. But like actually talk to the 8th grader because rather it makes a difference because I want them to see you.
Okay.
And I want them to understand, you know, that piece because you're such a beautiful person. Okay. All of you are.
Thank you. So I'm talking to this 8th grader. I think the most important thing you can do for yourself is definitely keep an open mind. You have so much time ahead of you. Whatever person you think you're going to grow into over the next 4 years of high school is definitely not the person you're going to enter college as, and it's not the person you're going to leave college as. So like, I think especially like in this time where people have such a high awareness of college and like its impact on your future, it's very easy to create this narrative of who you're supposed to be and how your life is supposed to go. And I would just tell that 8th grader that like that like you never know where life is going to take you. You never know where college is going to take you. And as much as you can just find what you're passionate about and find what you love and find people and causes that really matter to you and speak to you, as long as you take that with you, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Seyade, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you are going to say to that. Look at that 8th grader and tell that 8th grader how they can live their dream.
Okay.
Now,
I
thank
would
you.
say definitely keep your options open. Kind of use the next 4 years to explore like what you're interested in. Don't be afraid to try something new, because whatever, like however you think it may go will probably change. And then again, your interests are in college, so like just continue to keep exploring and growing.
Yeah, thank you. And Kahlil, what would you say to that eighth grader?
I think the best advice that I could give, and I'm talking to the eighth grader, you need to believe in yourself, and have faith in yourself. Because I think there will be times throughout your journey, whether it be the next few years, the next like 10 years, where you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You have a goal or you have something that you want to achieve and you don't know how you're going to get there, if it's going to happen. But at the end of the day, like the only way you do achieve these things is by having confidence in yourself, using that confidence to like motivate yourself to create a plan, and then following that plan to get to your goal. But that all is once again on the foundation of believing in yourself, which I think is the thing that I probably would carry with me, and like I've tried to instill in like the people around me, is that you have to believe that you're able to do it, no matter what like resources or knowledge you don't have right now. Because once you have that belief, you'll motivate yourself to go and get what you need to get the job done. But it all rests on you understanding that you have the power to do whatever you want in the world.
Yeah, and to carry that through for that student who's watching, for that student who sees the three of you, for that student who questions their belief, knowing that you had mentioned they can reach out to you. They can reach out to someone in your organization. The idea of a ninth grader, eighth grader reaching out to you and asking a question, you'll answer it. I mean, and I think that that's so wonderful, because I think students need to see the people who are living the life they want to live. And the idea that you're here, you're giving your time and you're present is such a wonderful gift. So I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to be here. I cannot tell you how grateful I am and how honored I am to be able to spend this time with you. And I look forward to connecting students with you and sharing this so that they can believe, because they can get there and they will get there. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we sign off? But I want to thank you all for being here, and I look forward to continuing this conversation. Reach out to Athena, Seyade, and Kahlil. They're happy to help you. We've got their Instagram IDs in the description, and you can certainly reach out to them. They'd love to help you. So thank you all for being here, and I look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.